The council chamber stretched so far that Sarah Chen could not see where it ended. Thousands of aliens sat in curved rows that spiraled upward like a massive stadium. Some had forearms, others had scales that glowed in the dark, and a few floated in tanks of purple liquid. Sarah had stopped trying to count how many different species filled the room. Her translator device buzzed in her ear, turning their strange languages into words she could understand. Sarah sat in the observation box with her small team of 5 humans. They were not allowed to speak. They were not allowed to vote. They could only watch and listen as the most powerful beings in the galaxy decided Earth's future. Ambassador Thelgzara stood at the center platform. She was from the Kryn hegemony, one of the oldest and most respected species in the galactic collective. Her skin looked like polished silver, and her 3 eyes never blinked. She held a data pad that glowed with information about Earth. Members of the collective, Thelgzara began, her voice echoing through the chamber. We gather today to discuss the planet called Earth and its dominant species, humans. Our observation teams have studied them for 300 of their years. The conclusion is clear. They are primitive. Sarah felt her teammate Marcus tense beside her. She put a hand on his arm. Not yet, she thought. Wait. Thelgzara touched her data pad and a giant hologram appeared above the chamber. It showed Earth's solar system, then zoomed in to show human cities, rockets, and satellites. Observe their technology, Thelgzara continued. They still burn chemicals to achieve spaceflight. They have not mastered quantum entanglement for communication. Their fastest ships would take tens of thousands of years to reach even the nearest star. By our standards, they are children playing with fire. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Some aliens made sounds that Sarah's translator could not interpret, but she understood the tone. They were laughing. There is more, Thelgzara said. They are not unified. Earth is divided into 196 separate nations. These nations compete with each other. They sometimes fight wars over resources and territory. How can we welcome a species into the collective when they cannot even achieve peace among themselves? A large alien with tentacles raised one appendage. What do you propose, Ambassador? Quarantine, Thelgzara answered firmly. We seal Earth's solar system from all galactic contact. We let them develop naturally. In perhaps 500 years, if they survive their own conflicts and advance their technology, we can revisit this question. Until then, they remain isolated. Sarah watched as the voting began. On the massive display above, numbers started to appear. Green for yes, red for no. The green numbers climbed rapidly. Out of 847 species in the collective, more than 700 had already voted for quarantine. This is it, whispered James, another member of Sarah's team. They're locking us out. Sarah checked the small device on her wrist. She looked at her team. They all nodded. They had rehearsed this moment for 2 years. Every possibility had been considered. Every word had been practiced. But now that it was here, Sarah felt her heart pounding. The vote reached 793 green, only 47 red. The decision was nearly final. Sarah stood up. The movement was small, but in the observation box where humans were supposed to sit silently, it was shocking. Thousands of alien eyes turned toward her. The chamber fell silent. Even Thelgzara stopped speaking and stared. Forgive the interruption, Sarah said. Her voice shook slightly, but she kept it steady. The translator device would carry her words to every being in the room. Before you finalize that decision, there is something you should know about humanity. Thelgzara's 3 eyes narrowed. You were granted permission to observe, not to speak. The decision is made. The decision is based on incomplete information, Sarah replied. She walked down from the observation box toward the center platform. Security drones hummed to life around her, but they did not stop her. The council wanted to hear what this primitive human could possibly say. Sarah reached the platform and stood beside Thelgzara. She pulled out a small device from her pocket. It looked like a simple black cube. You believe we are primitive? Sarah said, addressing the entire chamber. You have watched us for 300 years. You have seen our chemical rockets and our divided nations. You have concluded that we are not ready to join you. That is correct, Thelgzara said coldly. You are right about what you saw. Sarah continued. But you are wrong about what it means. You measured our technology by what we showed you. You never asked what we chose to hide. Sarah activated the cube. A new hologram exploded into existence above the chamber. This one did not show Earth cities or primitive rockets. It showed something else entirely. Mathematical equations filled the air. Three-dimensional models of space-time twisted and folded in ways that made several aliens gasp. Energy signatures pulsed in colors that should not exist. At the center of it all was a structure so complex that it seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "What is this?" demanded a voice from the council. "This," Sarah said, "is the dimensional arc, and it is proof that humanity has never been as primitive as you believed." The chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens shouted in hundreds of languages. The translator in Sarah's ear buzzed frantically, trying to keep up. Thelxara stared at the hologram, her silver skin darkening with what Sarah had learned was a sign of shock. "Impossible," Thelxara whispered. "These equations, this technology, it would require understanding of dimensional physics that even we have not fully mastered." "We know," Sarah said quietly. "We have been working on it for 80 years. 80 years? Thelxara turned to face Sarah fully. "Your species only achieved spaceflight 70 years ago. You expect us to believe that you developed dimensional technology in secret while we watched you?" Sarah met her three-eyed gaze steadily. "Yes, because we had to. Because in every future we calculated, revealing ourselves too early meant either suppression or slavery. We learned from our own history. The strong do not always welcome the different. They often try to control it." Thelxara was silent for a long moment. Around them, the council chamber was still in chaos. Finally, she spoke. "If what you show is real, then everything we know about humanity is wrong." "Not wrong," Sarah corrected. "Incomplete. You saw what we wanted you to see. We showed you chemical rockets because they were safe to show. We showed you divided nations because unity can be built in secret when the stakes are high enough. We showed you primitives because we needed time to finish what we started." "And what exactly did you start?" Thelxara asked. Sarah looked up at the hologram of the dimensional arc. "We started building a lifeboat. Because there is a storm coming, Ambassador. A storm that will destroy everything you have built, and we are the only ones who saw it coming." The council chamber fell silent. Every alien stared at Sarah Chen, the human who was supposed to be primitive, the human who had just revealed that everything they thought they knew was a carefully constructed lie. "I think," Sarah said softly, "you need to hear the rest of the story." The Galactic Council gave Sarah 1 hour to present her case. She stood at the center platform with her team around her. The hologram display had been expanded so every member of the council could see clearly. "I need to start with a date," Sarah began. "July 1947. A location called Roswell in the territory of New Mexico on Earth. Many aliens in the chamber shifted. Even among the stars, the Roswell incident was known. It was often used as an example of human paranoia and primitive thinking. You know the story," Sarah continued. "Something crashed in the desert. The human government said it was a weather balloon. For decades, many humans believed it was an alien spacecraft. Both explanations were wrong." Sarah activated a new hologram. It showed a desert landscape and a piece of twisted metal half buried in sand. But this metal was strange. It seemed to flicker as if it could not decide whether to exist or not. "What crashed at Roswell was not alien," Sarah said. "It was human. It was a probe sent back through time from our own future." The council chamber erupted again. Time travel was considered impossible by most species. A few had achieved it in theory, but the energy requirements were too massive. And the paradoxes were too dangerous. Thelxara held up one hand for silence. "Time travel is forbidden under collective law." "If humanity has broken this law—" "We didn't break it," Sarah interrupted. "We haven't achieved time travel yet, but we will." The probe came from approximately 200 years in our future. It carried a message, and that message changed everything. She touched the display and a document appeared. It was written in English, but the translation systems made it readable to all species. The message was simple, Sarah said. It was a warning. In every timeline where humanity joins the Galactic Collective as a junior member, Earth is destroyed within 150 years. The destruction comes from an interdimensional war, a war that has not started yet, a war that you do not know is coming. The council was silent now. Every eye was fixed on Sarah. The probe's database contained detailed records, Sarah continued. 53 different timelines. In every single one, humanity followed the expected path. We revealed ourselves when we developed faster than light travel. We joined the collective as students, learning from species more advanced than us. We became a minor member, grateful for the chance to be part of something greater. Sarah's voice grew harder, and in every timeline it led to our extinction. Because the war came and we were not ready. Because we had relied on you instead of developing our own strengths. Because we were so busy trying to catch up to your level that we never explored the directions you had not looked. She pulled up another hologram. This one showed Earth burning. Cities collapsed. Oceans boiled. Reality itself seemed to tear apart like paper. This is what happens in those timelines, Sarah said quietly. The null cascade arrives. The dimensional structure of space-time fails. And worlds simply stop existing. An alien with crystalline features spoke up. His voice sounded like breaking glass. You are claiming that we face an interdimensional collapse? This is fantasy. We have instruments that monitor dimensional stability. We would know. Sarah nodded to Marcus, who stepped forward. Your instruments monitor the standard dimensional frequencies, he said. The 17 dimensions that quantum physics predicts. You have never looked beyond those because your mathematics told you nothing else exists. Marcus activated his own display. Equations filled the air. They were similar to the ones the collective used, but with additional variables. Symbols that made no sense to most of the watching aliens. Human mathematics developed differently, Marcus explained. We were fractured into many nations, many schools of thought. Chinese mathematics, Indian mathematics, European mathematics, African mathematics. Each approach was slightly different. When we finally unified our knowledge, we discovered something you missed. There are not 17 dimensions. There are 23. The crystalline alien leaned forward. Prove it, Marcus smiled. He pulled out a device and activated it. Suddenly, a small sphere appeared floating in the air. It was there, but also not there. It existed in a way that hurt to look at. This sphere exists partially in the 21st dimension, Marcus said. Your instruments cannot detect it because they are not calibrated for frequencies that your mathematics say should not exist. He deactivated the device and the sphere vanished. The null cascade is happening in those hidden dimensions. By the time it reaches the dimensions you can measure, it will be too late to stop. Thelxara's silver skin had gone pale. How long do we have? Sarah took a deep breath. 30 years. Maybe less. The council chamber exploded into panic. Aliens shouted. Some called for Sarah to be arrested for spreading fear. Others demanded to see more proof. The noise was deafening. Sarah waited. She had expected this reaction. Finally, when the chaos began to settle, she spoke again. After we received the probe in 1947, we had a choice to make. We could warn you immediately. We could beg for your help. We could hope that together we could find a solution. She paused. But the probe's data showed us what happens when we do that. In 12 of the 53 timelines, we warned you early. In 8 of those timelines, you dismissed us as primitive and ignored the warning. In 3 timelines, you tried to suppress our knowledge because it challenged your understanding of physics. In 1 timeline, you tried to take our research by force. Thelxara looked uncomfortable. We would never— You would, Sarah said firmly. Not you personally, Ambassador. But species in the collective who could not accept that primitives had discovered something they missed. Species who saw knowledge as power and wanted to control it. Sarah walked around the platform as she spoke. So we made a different choice. We decided to develop the solution ourselves. In secret, we created the ARC Initiative. Every major government on Earth was brought into the conspiracy. Scientists were recruited. Facilities were built underground, underwater, in places where your observation satellites could not see. She gestured to the hologram of the dimensional arc. For 80 years, while you watched us play with chemical rockets, we were building this, the greatest collaborative effort in human history. All of our nations, all of our conflicts, all of our competition. It was real, but it was also cover. We needed you to think we were primitive. We needed you to ignore us, because we needed time. Time for what? Asked an alien with tentacles. Time to build a lifeboat for reality itself, Sarah answered. The dimensional arc is not a ship. It is not a weapon. It is a pocket dimension, a place where matter and energy can exist even if the normal dimensions collapse. It can hold billions of individuals, entire ecosystems, complete genetic databases, every piece of knowledge and culture we can gather. She turned to face Thelxara directly. We built it to save ourselves. But we built it large enough to save all of you too. Thelxara was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Why would you save us? If we ignored you in other timelines. If we suppressed you. Why help us now? Sarah smiled sadly. Because in those other timelines, we revealed ourselves when we were weak, when we needed you more than you needed us. This time we waited. We finished the arc. We came to you when we had something valuable to offer, not as beggars, but as equals. She looked around at the council. We are offering you a partnership. We will share the arc technology. We will work together to expand it, to improve it, to save as many species and worlds as possible before the cascade arrives. But it will be a partnership of equals. Earth will not be a protectorate. Humanity will not be a junior member. We stand with you or we stand alone. The chamber was silent. Sarah could feel the weight of thousands of eyes on her. Finally, Thelxara spoke. You have given us much to consider. The council must debate this. We must verify your claims. We must decide if we trust you. Of course, Sarah said. Take all the time you need. But remember, Ambassador, the clock is counting down, and we are the only ones who know how to build a lifeboat big enough for everyone. 3 days passed while the Galactic Council reviewed Sarah's evidence. Teams of alien scientists examined the data from the probe. They tested Marcus's dimensional detector. They ran simulations using the expanded mathematics that humanity had discovered. Sarah and her team waited in quarters assigned to them. The rooms were comfortable but clearly designed for surveillance. They knew every word was being recorded. Every action was being watched. On the morning of the 4th day, Thelxara came to their quarters personally. The council has reviewed your claims, she said. Her 3 eyes looked tired and her silver skin had lost some of its shine. Our scientists have confirmed the existence of the additional dimensions you described. They have detected the early signatures of what you call the null cascade. Sarah stood up slowly. You believe us. We have no choice but to believe you, Thelxara replied. The evidence is undeniable. The mathematics work. The cascade is real. She paused. We have been blind. For thousands of years we thought we understood the universe, and now we discover that we missed something so fundamental that it will destroy us. You were not blind, Sarah said gently. You were focused. Your mathematics worked for everything you needed. You had no reason to look beyond them. Humanity only looked further because we approached the problem from many different angles. Our division became our strength, Thelxara nodded slowly. The council wishes to see more. They have voted to send a delegation to Earth, to witness the dimensional arc in person, to verify that it is real and functional. Of course, Sarah agreed. When do we leave? Immediately. The journey to Earth took 6 days aboard a collective vessel. The delegation included Thelxara, 15 scientists from different species, and a security team. They were all sworn to secrecy. If the null cascade became public knowledge before preparations were made, panic would spread across the galaxy. During the journey, Sarah provided more details about the ARC initiative. She showed them records of human collaboration, secret meetings between governments that were publicly hostile to each other, scientists from rival nations working together in hidden facilities, resources diverted from military projects to fund the construction of the ARC. Your species managed to keep this secret for 80 years? Asked one scientist, a being made of flowing energy contained in a suit. How is that possible when you are so divided? Because we had a common threat, Sarah explained. When humans face extinction, we can accomplish remarkable things. Besides, keeping secrets is something humans are quite good at. We have had practice. They arrived at Earth on a cloudy Tuesday. The delegation's ship did not land on the surface. Instead, it descended into the Pacific Ocean, diving deeper than any collective vessel had gone before. The pressure should have crushed any structure, but the ship's shields held. At a depth of 15 kilometers, they reached a point where the ocean floor simply was not there. Instead, there was a shimmer in the water like heat waves rising from hot pavement. This is the entrance, Sarah said. The arc exists partially in normal space and partially in a pocket dimension. What you are seeing is the threshold. The ship passed through the shimmer and suddenly everything changed. The delegation stared in shock at what lay before them. The dimensional arc was vast beyond comprehension. It looked like a city, but also like a living organism, but also like a mathematical equation made solid. Structures spiraled in directions that should not exist. Chambers expanded into spaces larger than they should be able to contain. Lights pulsed in rhythms that seemed to exist outside of normal time. By the ancients, whispered Thelxara. It is real, Sarah smiled. Would you like a tour? They spent hours exploring the arc. Sarah showed them the residential sectors where billions of individuals could live comfortably. She showed them the biological preservation chambers, where complete ecosystems could be stored in stasis. She showed them the knowledge archives where the sum total of human culture and science was being recorded. But the most impressive demonstration came in a chamber that the delegation had not expected. Sarah led them to a large hall filled with transparent cylinders. Inside each cylinder was an animal. Some the aliens recognized as extinct Earth species, others they had never seen before. "This is our restoration project," Sarah explained. "These are animals that went extinct on Earth in the past. We used preserved DNA to bring them back, not to put them back in the wild, but to prove that the Ark's biological systems work." She pointed to a large cylinder containing a massive furry creature with long tusks. "That is a woolly mammoth. Extinct for 4,000 years. We brought it back. It is healthy. It is alive. This is proof that we can preserve and restore life even after it has been lost." The energy-being scientist floated closer to the cylinders. "This technology, it could save species across the galaxy, planets that have lost biodiversity, worlds that have suffered environmental collapse. This is revolutionary." "That is the point," Sarah said. "The Ark is not just about surviving the null cascade. It is about preserving everything worth saving. Culture, knowledge, life itself. When the cascade passes, we will still have everything we need to rebuild." Thelzara turned to Sarah with a question that had clearly been troubling her. "You said the Ark is large enough for billions, but there are trillions of beings in the collective. How do you choose who to save?" Sarah's expression grew somber. "We cannot save everyone. That is the terrible truth we have lived with since we discovered the probe. We can save genetic diversity. We can save culture and knowledge. We can save enough of each species to rebuild. But we cannot save whole planets. The energy requirements are too great." She walked to a window that looked out over the Ark's expanse. "That is why we need your help. The Ark's design can be scaled. We can build more pocket dimensions, expand the capacity, but we need resources we do not have. We need the industrial capacity of the collective. We need the expertise of species who have mastered technologies we are still learning. We built the foundation, but we cannot finish it alone." The delegation fell silent. They understood now the magnitude of what Sarah was offering and what she was asking. Finally, Thelzara spoke. "You mentioned that in other timelines we tried to suppress your knowledge or take it by force. What makes you think we will act differently this time?" Sarah turned to face the ambassador. "Because this time we showed you the threat first. We gave you proof that you could verify independently. We waited until you understood how serious the danger is. And most importantly, we finished the Ark before we revealed it. We do not need your permission to save ourselves. But we are offering you the chance to save yourselves too." She walked closer to Thelzara. "In those other timelines, we came to you weak and desperate. We gave you the power to control us. This time we come as equals. You need what we have built. We need what you can provide. Neither of us can survive alone. That is the foundation for a true partnership." Thelzara stared at Sarah for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed her head, a gesture of respect among her people. "You are correct," she said quietly. "We underestimated you. We saw primitives because we wanted to see primitives. We measured you by our standards and found you lacking. But you were playing a different game entirely. You were not trying to catch up to us. You were trying to survive us," Sarah nodded. "And now we need to survive together. The cascade is accelerating. Our latest calculations show it will arrive in 30 years, maybe less. We have 3 decades to expand the Ark, to prepare evacuation protocols to save as much as we can, but only if we work together, only if the collective accepts humanity as a true partner. And if we refuse," asked the energy-being scientist. Sarah's face was grim. "Then humanity seals the Ark and waits out the cascade alone. We will survive, but we will be the only ones. And when we emerge into whatever universe remains, we will rebuild from the ashes of a galaxy that was too proud to accept help from primitives." The words hung in the air like a sword. Thelzara straightened. "I will report to the council. I will recommend full partnership. But I cannot promise they will agree. There are species in the collective who will see this as humanity trying to seize power." "I know," Sarah said. "But the clock is ticking, Ambassador. And the cascade does not care about politics." The Galactic Council debated for 2 weeks. Every day brought new arguments, new concerns, new fears. Some species wanted full access to the Ark technology immediately. Others demanded that humanity submit to collective oversight. A few threatened to reject the partnership entirely, preferring to face extinction with dignity rather than accept help from a species they had dismissed as primitive. Finally, a vote was called. The resolution was simple: accept humanity as equal partners in the Ark Initiative or maintain the quarantine and face the Null Cascade alone. The vote passed by a narrow margin. 512 in favor. 335 against. Sarah received the news in her quarters aboard the orbital station above Earth. Thelxara delivered it personally. "Congratulations," the ambassador said, though her voice was heavy. "You have your partnership. But I must warn you, not all species accept this decision. There will be resistance. There will be sabotage attempts. Not everyone believes the cascade is real, and not everyone trusts humanity's motives." Sarah nodded. She had expected this. "We will deal with opposition as it comes. Right now we need to begin the expansion immediately. Every day we delay costs lives." Over the next 5 years, the Ark Initiative transformed from a human secret into a galactic project. Hundreds of species contributed their expertise. The Kryn provided their gravitational engineering, allowing Ark modules to be built in stable orbits around planets. The Zephyr contributed biological preservation matrices that could keep entire ecosystems in stasis indefinitely. The Karathi shared their quantum consciousness mapping technology, allowing minds and memories to be preserved. But humanity remained at the center. The core dimensional technology was theirs, and they controlled the primary Ark structure. This created tension, but it also created respect. The galaxy was learning that humans were not just clever, they were necessary. Sarah became the coordinator of the entire project. She traveled from world to world, meeting with leaders, solving problems, and managing the enormous logistics of preparing for extinction. She aged visibly during those years. Her hair turned gray, lines appeared on her face, but her determination never wavered. On the 5th anniversary of the partnership, Thelxara came to Earth again. This time she brought a request. "The Sovereignty Pact wants to see the Ark," she said. "They represent 47 species who voted against the partnership. They claim the Cascade is a hoax designed to give humanity control over the galaxy. If we can show them proof, real proof, perhaps they will join us." Sarah was hesitant. The Sovereignty Pact had been hostile from the beginning. Their leader, a massive creature called Vorn who came from a species of conquerors, had publicly called humanity liars and manipulators. But Sarah also understood politics. Unity was fragile. Every species they could bring into the fold increased their chances of survival. "I will show them something," Sarah agreed. "But I need a promise from you first, Ambassador. What I am about to reveal is difficult. It is painful, and it must be kept secret from the general population. Can you ensure that?" Thelxara's 3 eyes studied Sarah carefully. "What are you going to show us?" "The truth about how many times we have already failed," Sarah answered quietly. The delegation from the Sovereignty Pact arrived 1 week later. Vorn towered over everyone, standing 4 meters tall with armored plates covering his body and 6 arms that ended in claws. He radiated hostility and suspicion. "I do not believe in your cascade," Vorn announced as soon as he entered the Ark. "I believe you have created an elaborate deception to make yourselves important. Show me something real, or I will recommend that my people withdraw from all collective activities until this fraud is exposed." Sarah said nothing. She simply gestured for the delegation to follow her. She led them deep into the Ark, into sections that even most humans had never seen. They walked for what felt like hours through corridors that bent in impossible ways. Finally, they reached a massive chamber with walls that seemed to be made of frozen light. "This is the Memorial Hall," Sarah said softly. "It contains records from the probe that started everything. The probe from our future that warned us about the Cascade." She activated a control panel and the walls came alive. Images appeared, 3-dimensional and so realistic they seemed more real than reality itself. They showed cities burning, planets cracking apart, stars dying, and everywhere the same pattern of reality tearing like fabric. "These are recordings from other timelines," Sarah explained. "Timelines where humanity did not build the Ark in secret. Timelines where the Cascade came and we were not ready." The images changed. Now they showed humans, but these were not the humans standing before the delegation. These humans were different. Some wore strange uniforms. Some spoke languages that did not exist in this timeline. Some had technologies that were subtly wrong, as if they had developed differently. This is timeline 17, Sarah said, pointing to one set of images. In this timeline, we revealed the cascade to the collective immediately in 1950. You dismissed us. You said our mathematics were wrong. When the cascade came, Earth was one of the first planets destroyed. Population 7 billion. All lost. She moved to another section. This is timeline 23. We waited until we achieved faster than light travel in 2078. We joined the collective as junior members. We shared our knowledge of the hidden dimensions. 3 species tried to steal our research. A war broke out. The conflict weakened us so much that when the cascade arrived, we could not mount an effective response. Earth survived, but barely. 90% casualties. Image after image. Timeline after timeline. Each one showed a different path. Different choices. Different outcomes. But they all ended the same way: destruction, death, failure. Vorn had fallen silent. His 6 arms hung limp at his sides. Even his aggressive posture had softened. This is timeline 38, Sarah continued, her voice thick with emotion. This one hurts the most. In this timeline, we built a smaller version of the Ark. We saved 2 million humans. We offered refuge to other species, but only if they submitted to human authority. We became what we feared others would become: tyrants. When the cascade came, other species refused our help. They chose death over subjugation. We survived, but we were alone. And the humans who emerged from the Ark were not recognizable as the species we once were. She turned to face the delegation. Tears ran down her face. Do you understand now? We have seen ourselves fail in so many ways. We have seen ourselves become victims. We have seen ourselves become monsters. This time, this timeline, we are trying something different. We are trying to save everyone as equals, not as rulers, not as subjects, as partners. The walls went dark except for one final image. It showed a settlement on a barren planet. Humans lived there, but they were thin and desperate. The structures were crude. The technology was primitive. This is from timeline 41, Sarah whispered. This is what happened to the humans who survived the cascade in that timeline. They sealed themselves in the Ark when the cascade came, but the Ark in that timeline was smaller, less advanced. When they emerged, they found that every other species had been destroyed. They were alone in the universe. This settlement is their attempt to rebuild, but there are only 8,000 of them left. Not enough genetic diversity, not enough knowledge, not enough hope. She looked at Vorn directly. That is what we are trying to avoid. That is why we built the Ark large enough for everyone. That is why we need your help, not because we want power, but because we have seen what happens when we survive alone, and it is not a future worth living. Vorn was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost humble. I came here believing you were liars, he said. I came here prepared to expose you as frauds. But this, he gestured at the dark walls. This is not fraud. This is grief. This is the weight of knowledge that no species should have to carry. He turned to his delegation. We have been fools. We saw humanity's offer as a threat to our pride. We did not understand that they were offering us their pain, their experience, their hard-won wisdom from timelines where they failed. Thelxara stepped forward. You will support the Ark initiative. Vorn nodded slowly. We will. And I will personally apologize to every human I have insulted. You were not trying to control us. You were trying to save us. There is a difference, and I was too blind to see it. Sarah wiped her eyes. Thank you. Your support means more than you know. The Pact represents 47 species. With your resources and expertise, we can expand the Ark's capacity by 30%. That is millions of lives saved. As the delegation left the memorial hall, Thelxara stayed behind with Sarah. Why did you never show this to the council? The ambassador asked. This would have convinced them immediately. Sarah looked at the dark walls. Because it is too painful. Because the other humans in those timelines were real people. They lived and died and suffered. They are not just data. They are not just warnings. They are us, but for the choices we made. I did not want to use their suffering as a tool. I only show this to people who give me no other choice. Thelxara was quiet for a moment. Then she placed one hand on Sarah's shoulder, a gesture of comfort she had learned from humans. You carry a heavy burden, she said softly. Sarah nodded. We all do now. Welcome to the weight of survival. 25 years after humanity revealed the dimensional arc, the galaxy had transformed. Ark modules existed in orbit around 300 major worlds. Evacuation protocols had been established. Genetic databases had been compiled for 2,000 species. Cultural archives preserved the art, music, literature, and history of civilizations spanning millions of years. But not everyone accepted the new order. The attacks began small. A sabotaged construction site here. A data breach there. At first, Sarah and her team thought it was simple accidents or technical failures. But as the incidents increased, a pattern emerged. Someone was trying to destroy the Ark initiative. The truth came to light when a massive explosion ripped through the Ark module under construction near the Kryn homeworld. The blast killed 200 workers from 17 different species. Among the dead were 37 humans. Sarah stood in the debris field, her face pale as she watched recovery teams search for survivors. Telxara stood beside her, equally shaken. "Who would do this?" Telxara whispered. The answer came 3 days later. A group calling themselves the Sovereignty Liberation Front sent a message to every government in the collective. Their leader appeared on screens across the galaxy. His name was Keswick, and he belonged to a species called the Vormacht, ancient conquerors who had once ruled 20 star systems before joining the collective. "The Ark is a trap," Keswick announced in his message. "Humanity seeks to control the galaxy by making us dependent on their technology. They invented the story of the Null Cascade to create fear. They want us to abandon our worlds, our cultures, our independence. They want to herd us into their dimensional prison where they will have total control." The message continued with calls for resistance. Keswick urged species to reject the Ark initiative. He claimed that ancient collective species should face whatever future came with dignity, not hide behind the technology of primitives. Within weeks, more attacks followed. Ark facilities were bombed. Ships carrying construction materials were destroyed. Scientists working on the project were assassinated. The Liberation Front had support from extremists across multiple species. They saw the Ark as humanity's attempt to dominate the galaxy. Sarah called an emergency meeting with the Council's security forces. She stood before them, exhausted and angry. "We need to stop these attacks," she said bluntly. "Every day of delay means fewer people we can save. Every destroyed facility reduces our capacity. These terrorists are not just fighting humanity. They are killing everyone." But the security response was hampered by politics. Some species were reluctant to act too harshly against the Liberation Front. Some secretly sympathized with their message. The investigation moved slowly while more attacks continued. Finally, the Liberation Front made their boldest move. They launched a direct assault on Earth itself. 50 warships appeared in Earth's solar system without warning. They came through hidden jump routes, avoiding all detection. Their target was clear: the primary Ark nexus hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean. If they could destroy it, the entire Ark network would collapse. Earth's defensive satellites activated immediately, but they were designed to handle small threats, not a full military fleet. The warships pushed through the outer defenses and descended toward the ocean. Sarah was in the command center when the attack began. Alarms screamed. Displays showed the incoming ships. Her team scrambled to coordinate a response, but Earth had never built a military fleet. All their resources had gone into the Ark. "We are defenseless," James said, his voice tight with fear. "They will reach the Nexus in 7 minutes. Sarah stared at the displays. 7 minutes. 78 years of work. Billions of lives depending on them. And humanity had no weapons capable of stopping 50 warships. "Actually," she said slowly, "we do have a defense. We just never told anyone about it." She turned to her team. "Remember, we have been building the Ark for 80 years. We have dimensional technology that the galaxy is still learning. We can fold space. We can manipulate reality. Did you really think we would not build something to protect it?" Sarah activated a command sequence that only she and 2 other humans knew existed. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the Ark's defensive systems came online. Systems that had been hidden even from the collective partners. The attacking warships suddenly found themselves surrounded by distortions in space. Reality bent around them. And then in an instant all 50 ships vanished. They did not explode. They did not crash. They simply ceased to be in Earth's solar system. In the Liberation Front's command ship, 10,000 light-years away, Keswick stared in confusion as his attack fleet suddenly appeared next to him. They had been transported across the galaxy in less than a second. Sarah's face appeared on every screen in every ship, Her expression was cold. "We could have erased you," she said quietly. "We have the technology to fold your ships into dimensions where you would never exist. We chose not to. We relocated you far from any ARC facility, but within range of your home systems. You can return home safely." She paused, letting that sink in. "That is the difference between us. You attacked us out of fear and pride. We defended ourselves without killing anyone. You see the ARC as a prison. We see it as salvation. You think we want control. We just want everyone to survive." Sarah's voice grew harder. "But understand this clearly. We will protect the ARC. We will protect the people who depend on it. If you attack again, we will not be so gentle. We have shown you mercy once. There will not be a second time." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings who had seen the message fell silent. Humanity had just demonstrated a level of power that shocked even the oldest species. They had technology that could move entire fleets across the galaxy instantly. They had chosen not to use it as a weapon. The Liberation Front collapsed within days. Keswick himself surrendered, claiming he had been misled. The attacks stopped. The ARC initiative resumed its work. But time was running out faster than anyone had predicted. 5 years later, Sarah's worst fears came true. The dimensional sensors detected a surge in the cascade's progression. The collapse was accelerating. Advanced modeling showed that it would arrive not in 5 years as planned, but in less than 1. "We are not ready," Thelgzara said, staring at the data with horror. "We planned for 5 more years of construction. We can only save 60% of the target population now." Sarah nodded grimly. "Then we save who we can. We begin emergency evacuations immediately. Priority goes to children, genetic diversity, and knowledge preservation. We work until the last possible second." The final year was chaos. Ships moved constantly between worlds and ARC modules. Families were torn apart as lotteries determined who would be saved. Entire cities were abandoned as populations were relocated. Some species accepted their fate with calm dignity. Others rioted and fought. Sarah barely slept. She coordinated everything from the command center in the primary ARC. Every decision meant choosing who lived and who died. The weight of it aged her beyond her years. Her hair turned completely white. Her hands shook constantly. Marcus found her one night, staring at a display showing the approaching cascade. "You should rest," he said gently. "I will rest when everyone is safe," Sarah replied. "Or when the cascade takes me. Whichever comes first." The cascade arrived on a Tuesday. The sensors detected it at the edge of the galaxy. A wave of dimensional collapse that moved faster than light. It would reach the core populated regions in 72 hours. Sarah gave the order. "Seal all ARC modules. Begin final transfers. We are out of time." For 3 days, the galaxy watched reality die. Stars simply stopped existing. Planets vanished as if they had never been. Entire civilizations disappeared in silence. The cascade did not burn or destroy. It just erased, removing matter from existence as the dimensional foundation collapsed. Inside the ARC modules, billions of refugees watched through sensors as their homeworlds died. The grief was beyond words. Species that had existed for millions of years saw everything they had built disappear in moments. But the ARC held. The dimensional barriers that humanity had designed remained stable. The pocket dimensions stayed intact even as normal space-time failed around them. Sarah stood in the primary command center with Thelgzara beside her. They watched as the cascade passed through the sector where Earth had been. Sarah's homeworld, the planet where humanity had evolved, where they had built their first cities and fought their first wars. Gone. "I am sorry," Thelgzara whispered. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "It is okay. Earth died, but humanity lives. That is what matters." The cascade took 3 months to pass through their entire region of space. When it finally faded, the sensors showed a universe transformed. Where billions of stars had existed, there was now mostly emptiness. A few scattered systems remained, protected by random dimensional anomalies. But 90% of the galaxy had simply ceased to exist. Inside the ARC, life went on. 2,000 species from across the galaxy lived together in the pocket dimensions. It was crowded. It was difficult. Different species had different needs, different cultures, different ways of thinking, but they were alive. Sarah stood before the combined council of survivors. She was old now, 73 years since that first day when